Isn't it a great feeling to receive an invitation? Maybe it's to spend time with a good friend, or go to a great concert, or attend a block party in your neighborhood, or have lunch with someone you want to get to know. When someone invites us to do something, we appreciate that they made the effort to include us. But for all the invitations you've accepted, let me ask you this one question. What made you say yes? What made you decide it was something you wanted to do? Maybe you said yes because you knew it was something that you were going to enjoy. Or maybe you said yes out of guilt. You didn't actually want to go, but you felt bad saying no. Maybe you said yes out of obligation. You weren't excited about the event or the people, but you didn't feel like you could say no. Or maybe you said yes to an invitation because you were curious. It was something new and you were genuinely interested in finding out more. But I think there's a common underlying reason why most of us say yes to any invitation. It's because of who invited us. Think about it. There are people in your life who could invite you to something you really want to do, but something in you still wants to say no. It's not the invitation itself, it's the person who extended it. But then there are people you love spending time with. And if they invited you to do something, even if it's something you're not necessarily interested in, you might still say yes. Because when it comes to an invitation, the who can often be more important than the what. And here's why this matters. As Christians, we're encouraged to invite people all the time. We're encouraged to invite people to church, to invite people to small group, to invite people to Bible study, or to invite people into a relationship with Jesus. But if we're being honest, I think some of us would say that the idea of inviting other people to move toward Jesus can feel awkward, uncomfortable, or even overwhelming. In fact, some of you would rather do anything but share a very personal faith. Maybe we're afraid that we won't know what to say, that we won't have all the answers, or that we won't know what to do if we end up in a conversation about faith. And nobody wants to be that person who talks about their faith in a way that makes it awkward for everybody that's involved. Plus, there's the question of how to even begin a conversation about our faith in the first place. Christians have tried all kinds of ways to invite other people to get to know Jesus. We've bought billboards. We've put bumper stickers on our cars. We've made brochures that can explain people's need for Jesus and handed them out to absolute strangers. We've put invitations on shoes, bracelets, breath mints, fake $100 bills, and just about any item you can imagine. Of course, the intentions behind these invitations are good. Most Christians simply want other people to know Jesus. But good intent doesn't always mean the invitation is effective. And yes, sometimes those methods can work, but sometimes they can also scare people away from faith. That's why today, I want to talk to you about a different approach to sharing your faith and a potentially less awkward and less uncomfortable way to invite others to know Jesus. To show you what I mean, today we're looking at the Gospel of John. John was a close friend of Jesus while he was down here on earth. Years later, he decided to write down everything he remembered from that time. If you read the Gospels, the 4 accounts of Jesus' life, you'll see a phrase that comes up time and time again. When people tried to describe anything about Jesus, how great he is, how amazing his teachings were, how incredible his actions were, they found themselves struggling to put words to it. So often, his followers would end up simply saying this: come and see. In other words, I can't tell you everything you need to know about Jesus, and I don't have all the answers to all of your questions about who he is or what he can do. You're just going to have to come and see for yourself. One person who understood this was Philip, an early follower of Jesus. In this passage, we see Philip extend this kind of invitation to his friend Nathanael. Check this out. Philip found Nathanael and told him, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." Nazareth? Can anything good come from there? Nathanael asked. "Come and see," said Philip. Nazareth was a small, ordinary village, so Nathanael seemingly couldn't believe that something of significance could come from somewhere so insignificant. Plus, Philip wasn't able to explain everything he had seen or heard. He didn't have all the answers for Nathanael, but instead of getting stuck and saying nothing, Philip opted to do something else. He simply invited Nathanael to come and see for himself. I think Philip knew something that's still true today. When it comes to Jesus, experience is more effective than explaining. There was something unique in seeing Jesus, hearing him, and being in his presence that was simply unexplainable. So instead of trying to explain it, it was better to just invite others to experience it, to come and see it for themselves. And you know what Nathanael did? He said yes. Philip extended an invitation, and without knowing much about Jesus at all, Nathanael decided to follow along. But why did Nathanael decide to go and see Jesus when all he knew about Jesus is what Philip told him? Nathanael responded to Philip's invitation because of the person giving the invitation. Nathanael may not have known Jesus yet, but he knew and trusted Philip. So when Philip told him to come and see, he did just that. The truth is, this principle applies to every part of our life. When we invite someone to anything, whether it's a baseball game, a dinner, or a game night at our house, the single biggest influence on their decision to get involved is this: how do they feel about the person doing the inviting? Because no matter how appealing or interesting or fun the activity, what's more important is the person behind the invitation. The who behind the what is often the deciding factor as to whether someone will say yes. And this is even more critical for us as Jesus followers. The best way to influence others to say yes to your invitation to chase after Jesus is to live in a way that other people want to chase what you're chasing. Do people see your life and think, I'd like to be more like that? Are you considered trustworthy by the people closest to you? Are you the kind of person people admire? Do you treat people so well that they feel better just by hanging around you? Do you look out for people? Do you treat people with respect even when they don't respect you? Those are the sorts of things that make people curious about why you're different. In his most famous sermon, Jesus said this: "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot." Jesus says here that our lives should operate like salt. And how does salt work? Well, it flavors things, preserves things, and makes things taste better. You know what makes Doritos so delicious? Among other things, it's the salt. The secret ingredient in your chocolate chip cookies? Believe it or not, it's the salt. Even just a tiny bit of salt makes nearly everything better. And Jesus is saying the same thing is true for you. The road around you should be better and more enjoyable because you are there. Your family should be more enjoyable because you're in it. Your neighborhood should be better because you're there. Your friends should be better people because you're in their life. If you're a Christian, every environment you're in should be better, more seasoned and flavored, and more enjoyable because you're there. Why? Because you carry the Spirit of Jesus with you. He makes you better, and you make the world around you better as well. Not only that, there should also be a noticeable absence when you aren't there. Just like some people notice if there isn't enough salt on their fries, there should be a noticeable difference if Christians aren't around. Our culture should be saying, I wish the Christians were here. Everything is better when Jesus followers are around. Maybe that sounds ridiculous, but this is what Jesus was talking about when he said that we're to be the salt of the earth. It's what Jesus did in the environments he was in. He brought life to the people around him. He made things better. Even the tax collectors and the sinners and bad guys loved hanging around Jesus. People who were nothing like Jesus liked Jesus because of how he treated them. And we should be the same way. If we want to be people who get a yes response when we invite people to church, to small group, or to chasing Jesus, we have to be the kind of likable people others want to say yes to. Also, followers of Jesus should be the first people others think of when they're in need. When people are in a crisis and need help and comfort, people need to know that we'll come alongside them and offer encouragement, hope, and grace. In order to invite others to follow Jesus, we have a responsibility to live in a way that makes Jesus look like he's worth following. In other words, if we want to invite others to a life with Jesus, we have to actually live like Jesus. That's what makes us credible. That's what makes us reliable. That's what makes us trustworthy. Being this type of person shows others what Jesus is like. So when we extend an invitation to follow him, other people will understand what we mean. Hopefully, people will trust us because they'll grow to trust what we say about Jesus. They've seen us chase Jesus for a while, and they understand what joining in that kind of chase looks like. And I get it. Sharing your faith and inviting others into this part of your life can be scary, but it's important, and here's why. Chasing Jesus means sharing him with them. Part of growing our own faith is living in a way that invites others into the story. And sharing Jesus with others starts by being likable and credible. It starts by caring about other people and treating them the way that Jesus would. And when we chase him in this way, sharing becomes much easier. It's something people around us will be naturally curious about. And when we invite other people to come and see, they're more likely to say yes because they've seen what chasing Jesus looks like for us. Can you imagine if Christians had this kind of reputation in our culture today? If we really were the kind of people who bring joy, kindness, and light to every place we're in and to every person we encounter? If we lived in a way that made others wonder what it is we're chasing? In fact, if we lived this way, people wouldn't be able not to notice. They'd pay attention. They'd lean in and ask, why is your life this way? And when they do, it'll be much easier to share Jesus with them because they've experienced us living it out day after day. Because when we chase Jesus, we make it easier for others to do the same.